Hello, Tungsten Miner here. Another quick update on how the house is coming along. As you can see, I've busted out a bunch of different building materials. This is what I tend to do with things as I'm working with chisels and bits and I need to clear out my inventory to work on the next section of whatever it is I'm doing. Is just kind of plop them all down there in whatever format they come in. And the way that I wind up doing this is I'll grab one of these things, say I want to work with it in a plane, and then just kind of count up to 16, which gets me to a full block. And now that's just a regular block again. And as I'm emptying my inventory, I'll do this, with one after another of the different parts that I've got in my inventory until I get my chiseled bit bag back empty again. Just as a reminder, the recipe for this guy is to just take a bit of any kind at all and then surround it with any kind of wool at all, and you get yourself a bit bag. And that's really the beginning of chisels and bits, even more than the chisel, because you can make yourself a chisel and start breaking up blocks, and before you know it, your inventory will be completely full. And you can actually double check what you've got in here. You just put it in your inventory, right click, and then it'll show you all the blocks you've got. So I've been working with some diorite and I've been working with some spruce planks. And I can hold down the shift key at any time to be able to pop those back to full blocks again, which of course makes it a whole lot easier to see what it is that I'm dealing with. And if I wanted, I could get rid of any of these bits just by dragging them over to here. And that would get rid of those bits, just deleting them straight out without having to plop them down again. The reason I plop them all down, of course, is that I'm going to be building lots of stuff that's going to use this material, and I don't want to waste the material. So anyway, back to the building. I've, of course, been working along... talk about that in a minute. I've been working along. Remember last time I'd left off, I had done a part of one of these walls here. So now I've gone all the rest of the way around this room. And a couple of things you can see here. First, I've got just some clay, white clay for the wall. I've got some jungle planks using a pattern that came through the chisel mod here. For the bottom part, just some wood paneling around the bottom. And then this is actually some spruce wood that I have just a 1x2 chunk to give myself a nice clear line from one to the other. And then I use the same material just as a baseboard around the floor. And then, of course, I've been using andesite, gone through the chisel mod again to get this particular pattern. And that's kind of the textures in this room. For the door, I took the same chisel spruce that I've been using for joists and beams and rafters and things, and I don't particularly want it to look like those, but actually I just thought it looked nice as a pattern for the doorway here. And then I carved this back so that you can see I've got 1 square meter here. So I left the wall 1 bit short so that I could put in the trim around the doorway in that bit that's recessed into the adjacent blocks. Because of course if I want to put a door in the middle here, I'm going to have to leave exactly 1 meter because none of the doors understand chisels and bits and would think that this block was occupied if I had even 1 bit in there anywhere. In the hallway then, I've decided to go with this, I think it's an andesite pattern that's come through chisels and bits. Come through the chisel mod. A lot of chisel mods going on. And that gives me this. And I'll probably build up that door frame a little bit more so that it matches here. You can see it sticks out just a bit. And I'll probably do the same thing around here to get that working the same way. As you can see, I've filled in the subflooring and the rafters underneath. And the way I wound up doing that is to grab my positive chisel design here, and I just went into the middle of the room over here and grabbed a chunk. And then as you can see, if I put this as a placement thing, I could potentially plop that back down again, and I've got my rafters underneath, my layer of subfloor, my layer of tile. Now, I don't happen to have in my inventory at the moment enough of the bits to place this down completely, so I can right-click and nothing happens. But if I had all of those types of bits, that particular spruce pattern, that particular birch pattern, and of course the andesite tiles, then this would plop down again. And what I would often do is pop one of these down, erase the parts that I don't want when I'm carrying it over to somewhere else, and then refresh my positive chisel design by throwing it through my crafting table and then selecting whatever it was that I just built. And then that way, I was able to isolate just the subfloor and the joists so that I could run them across back and forth here all the way through to the end. And that's how I got all this filled in. Next, I wanted to talk about this stairway that I've been starting to work on. So, of course, I had just some dirt blocks, and I still have, I think, over here some dirt blocks. But that's kind of cheating, of course. Can't use that in the final house. So I figured I'd get started on roughing out these stairs. The first thing I did was to figure out where those subfloor elements would be by counting down 8 bits, or half a block, from where the subfloor is here, which leaves me room to put in the regular floor that I'm going to have on top of that. And I haven't decided what it's going to be, but it should be pretty easy to do that once I get around to it. And then I went back in and put in these studs here, put in the joists going across that meet up with them, put in the baseboard down here to figure out where everything lines up. So the way this is going to work in the end is I will sheetrock over this wall here with whatever pattern, maybe this, maybe something else, and that will become the wall that's between the two stairs here. Now this one's going down, of course, and we're going to have a bit of a landing and then a few more steps down to make it to the final basement level. And then when I'm going up in the other direction, I'll tear out this bit of the floor here, which in hindsight I probably shouldn't have bothered about making, and do exactly the opposite of what I've done here, counting up along the wall to get to the next story. And I think what I'll do is build up this staircase and finish it off, the same way that I've finished the inside of this room here, so that I've got a good example of what's going on. And as I'm working in place to place, as I mentioned before, I use this positive chisel design a lot so that I can grab a piece that I've done before and move it somewhere else. So for example, doing this wall, once I had a good example all the way through, you can just kind of cut and paste and all the way across to get the whole thing going. And that makes the work go a lot faster. It's very slow to do the initial designs, but once you've got the initial designs, it's very fast to replicate them. So that's my current progress. What I'm going to do next, of course, is to finish off this staircase going down, both in terms of roughing out the layers and what's going to go on. I'm going to put in a support, kind of an angled piece that goes down at that same 45-degree angle along the middle there so that I can get a somewhat realistic representation of how the stairs might actually be built. And that will connect up to some extra reinforcing members I'll put up there. And then I will want to sheetrock in this wall, do the same thing for the steps coming down over here, and put in some proper kind of coverings over this here. I think I'll leave the cement raw as you go down into the basement, just as a kind of indication that that's where you're going, is you're now getting into the foundations of the building. And then I will build it up again so that I've got the same landing up above, which gives me a good baseline for where the top of the house is. And then I can build up these walls to match with that and figure out what I want the ceiling to look like in here. Once I know where the ceiling is, I know how tall the wall is, and I'll be able to figure out how many and where I want the windows to go and how wide. Because, of course, using Chisels Bits, I don't have to make them a full meter wide. I could make them 1.5 meters. I could make them 2 meters. I could make them a fraction of a meter and have long, skinny windows. So, lots more choices now that I've got much smaller pieces to work with. So that's what I'm going to be tackling next time. As always, hit that like button if you like the video. If you want to know when the next one's ready, hit subscribe. And of course, remember that our server still has some room on it. So leave a comment below if you'd like to join us. That's all for now. Talk to you later.